Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Minecraft Disney World Q&A. It's the series in which you give me Q's about Disney, anything Disney, and I give you my A's. This week might be a little short, I'm not going to lie. It might have something to do with the release of the PlayStation 4 and my warped priorities. But that said, we still have questions to answer about Disney World while I walk around Epcot here on the MC Magic server. We're going to start off this week with a pretty numbers-based question by Jordan Mann. He asks, how many rides/attractions are there in Walt Disney World? Now, this number is going to vary depending on what you consider an attraction, what you consider a ride. There's shows that might count as an attraction, but those are you just sort of sitting down. They're rides that physically move you through. There are like boats between parks that some people actually consider rides in their own, form of entertainment. If you were to consider a ride as an attraction that physically moves guests through something, there would be about 132. That includes the water parks, that includes the theme parks, and it breaks down to 32 in the Magic Kingdom, 35 here in Epcot, 23 in Hollywood Studios, 20 in Animal Kingdom, Typhoon Lagoon 11, Blizzard Beach also 11, and then it also counts things like the monorail and whatnot. We're going to go straight to World Showcase. Now again, that's sort of a flexible number. It depends on what you're counting. And it depends on what's an attraction. An attraction could be, is the trolley show on Main Street an attraction? Because it feels like it, and some people wait for it and they enjoy it, but it's not the sort of thing you go to and get in line for, right? So would you count something like that? I don't know. I think the takeaway is there are a lot. Definitely enough to make you want to come back to Disney multiple times, because the odds of being able to cover all 132 within the span of one vacation is pretty low. So, that's sort of Disney's MO, is they always try and have something new. So even if you are the type of person who can hit up a lot of attractions on a vacation, there will always be something left for you to visit. And then, of course, by the time you get that stuff in the next trip, then the stuff that you visited in the previous one, you're kind of jonesing for, and before you know it, you're going to Disney all the time, hopelessly like a Disney fanatic like myself. So it's a great question. Next question is from the Spence TV, who says, will there ever be a good recreation of the Disneyland Resort in Anaheim along with California Adventure and the hotels? It would mean a lot if you mentioned this question. Thank you. So I am assuming you mean recreation on Minecraft. Now, MC Magic's goal here is to recreate Walt Disney World, and they've gotten extremely far, but there's, of course, a whole lot left to do. So I think they're probably keeping their hands off of Disneyland as far as the near future is concerned. However, I think one thing that's amazing about MC Magic is it has sort of inspired so many other servers to take up recreating both Disney World, Disneyland, others Disney's theme parks, Universal, Six Flags. There's just so much recreation going around. And I do know that there are servers in the works that work on Disneyland. I can't name any off the top of my head that, by IP. I think a lot of them are works in progress as right now. Obviously, this is a gargantuan undertaking, regardless of what theme park you're trying to recreate. There's a lot of work involved. So will there ever be one? I think so. When and where, I'm not 100% sure yet. But the future will let us know. Great question. Matt Rappa asks, why haven't the cars in Tomorrowland Speedway been converted to electric yet? That is the way of the future, right? It better appeals to Disney's 4 keys: safety, courtesy, show, and efficiency. Will they ever do it? Also, I always thought the Imagineers would redesign the ride to resemble Pixar cars, just like how they redesigned Test Track and Epcot. Of course, he doesn't mean Epcot cars, the Test Track cars, look like Pixar cars. He just means that they've been recently redesigned. That's a great question, and I actually don't know the answer. Why aren't they electric? I 100% agree with you that it's definitely more efficient. It's more of a Tomorrowland-esque feel. It's funny. Originally, the Tomorrowland Speedway was created as a vision of Tomorrowland, because the attraction was created at a time where the concept of a speedway, of a highway, of an interstate, like, was still pretty new. You have to remember that infrastructure in America came about in the early 20th century, and in the early 1900s, around the World War II era, and Disneyland, which is where the original Autopia opened, was in 1955. So it was a very novel idea. It was very future focused, but again, that's something that we've lived with for so long now that it isn't really something we associate with the future, but electric cars is, and I totally think that'd be a great idea. And it seems like a no-brainer, so much that it really puzzles me. I have a similar question in that, why haven't they done that yet? I don't know. It could be a cost analysis thing. Maybe it's on the books. I think, sadly, before you see them do that, you'll just see them get rid of the Tomorrowland Speedway completely, because I think, as terms of real estate, that is a lot of space that they can use for, 2, maybe even 3 attractions, because there's already an infrastructure there in that space. So I don't know if I would say I expect it to ever happen. However, I do think it is a no-brainer, and maybe the reason it hasn't is because they are planning to do other things with that space. Hopefully we'll see in the future, hopefully soon. Although I will admit, as environmentally unfriendly as that attraction is, there's something about the puttering of all those cars on the Speedway that has, in my mind, become synonymous with the audio experience of Tomorrowland. Like, that, the sound of the Wedway People Mover on its tracks, and just that, background loop of Tomorrowland, those 3 things together come together and create the Tomorrowland experience for me. So I would love to see, in sort of a way that Disney often works in references to past attractions, if they do ever remove the Tomorrowland Speedway, to work that puttering ambience into like their loops somehow. I think that would be a lot of fun. Thanks for that question, Matt. Joshua, look at this. This is awesome. I need to come to these restaurants. What's amazing about the server is there are areas I explore, like the back of Canada, that make me realize, like, I don't get to explore them in the real Disney because for some reason I forget, or I never think to go somewhere. And I mean, I've been compiling a list in my mind of places I want to visit in Disney World that I've never really visited before, that I've found through MC Magic, which is just another cool way that this server it's fun for even, Disney vets. Anyway, next question. Joshua Lossie asks, hey Rob, do you think Disney could put Universal out of business simply by building another park dedicated to roller coasters to persuade fans of roller coasters to come to Disney instead? Why or why not? What would you name this park? I don't think that park would exist, and I don't think it should. I think Disney's ideals at heart are a theme park for everyone in the family, and roller coasters aren't. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think there should be roller coasters in Disney. I just don't think it should be the focus of any one park. I think there should be coasters as a feature of a park. So I don't know what I would call it, because I don't necessarily think it should exist. Do I think they can put Universal out of business? No. I think maybe that could have been argued in the early 90s when Universal was new, but I think as a theme park, Universal has gained a name for itself. It's going to always offer IPs that Disney can't, like Harry Potter, and contractually, despite the fact that Disney owns it, there's going to be certain Marvel rides that Disney won't be able to provide in Disney World. And also, I think just because it's not a zero-sum game, it isn't that people have to go to one or the other. I think in many cases that may be the case. You're limited financially or in time-wise. But I know so many people who go down there and they make a day of Universal. They make a day of Disney. They split their time. They'll go to Busch Gardens even. So I think he might win some people over, sure. But I think at this point in time, people have decided where they're going to go. And I think, if anything, that might just help each other, To be honest, it might be the sort of thing where somebody who's really into roller coasters, who maybe doesn't go down to Florida because there's only Universal and Disney doesn't really offer a lot, maybe you build this park with roller coasters, and now that person goes, well, great, now there's 2 roller coaster centric theme parks down there, so now I'll go to both theme parks, and now Universal has gotten sales and ticket sales that they wouldn't previously had. That's sort of the rising tide lifts all boats sort of mentality, and I think you already see it where people go down to Disney and then they go to Universal, or people go down to Universal and then they go to Disney. It's like they help each other out. And it's very much a thing where it reminds me a lot of consoles, video game consoles. Like people go, oh, Xbox or PlayStation, who's going to win this generation, right? Who's going to win? That's the term they always use. Who's going to win? Guess what? Everyone's going to win. Microsoft's going to win. Sony's going to win. Nintendo has won. In this case, in this context, Disney's going to win. Universal's going to win. Busch Gardens going to win. These places still exist and they're around because you don't have to be the best to be a winner. So, I mean, that's where I sort of stand on that. And I think a lot of people who visit, and this also goes to the video game consumer thing. I've got consoles on the mind. I'm sorry. The PS4 comes out. It's Sunday for you guys, so it's actually out already. But for me, it's Wednesday. It comes out tomorrow night, so I'm psyched. But, when it comes to these major corporations and these big money-making, businesses, it's hard to lose, But that was a great question. And then finally this week, wow, I think we're going to do this in one loop around of a World Showcase. K-Op says, what do you think of the glow at the show technology? Seems like that it's going to become more consistent style of attraction interaction, especially considering the Magic Band tracking systems in place. Do you think Disney will incorporate mobile device apps to increase interaction with rides? That's a fantastic question. So he's talking about, I'm not 100% sure what glow at the show is, but I can kind of put together. I assume what it means is you have some sort of band that lights up, and it lights up using radio signals in sync with a show. A lot of concerts actually do this now, and it's actually really impressive because you see just this whole audience glowing in beat with the music. That's what I'm going to assume that is. And the Magic Bands are now this rubber band with an RFID chip that sort of replaces your keys to the kingdom. That is sort of an all-access band that acts as your room key, that acts as your credit card, all sorts of different information. And then mobile devices. I mean, do I think all these things will be integrated more and more? I absolutely do. I think Disney is innovative. They're all about keeping you excited and wanting to go. This last question talks about making roller coasters as a way of, competing with Universal. That's not the real way to compete, I think, in 2013. We know what roller coasters are. We know we all have the technology to make them. And by we all, I mean we all companies. But it's this innovative integration with, mobile apps and interactivity that I think is definitely going to be showing up more and more. Do I think apps will play a part? Maybe to a limited degree. I mean, we're still at a point in the world where it's not universal for everyone to have a smartphone. I think we'll get there eventually, and maybe at that point you'll see more of it. But I definitely do think you'll see a lot more interactivity. You're seeing it in the queue already. Who knows how else you can see it? If I knew how other ways you could do so, hey, this is a new texture. That's really nice. Then I would have a pretty high-paying job at Disney right now as an Imagineer. But I'm really excited to see what they might hold into the future, just because I think that does make it more interesting. Anything that limits the amount of time where you're just waiting and increases the amount of time that you're doing something fun in the parks is going to help them in the long run. How that'll play into the part, I think you'll see it, maybe not in attractions, but think of things like Agent P or Kim Possible. It used to be the Kim Possible Quest. Imagine that, but rather than integrating a device they give you, it integrates with your cell phone. That's where you can use that technology. You could also just use that technology to have a better experience in terms of, apps that tell you where characters are at that moment, so you know who you can see and when. Or that gives you, we already have apps with line times and things like that. So we're already seeing apps used to make the experience better. It's just a matter of more creative minds than mine coming up with even more interesting ways to use them. In any case, this has been another Q&A. If you have a question you want me to answer, you can just leave it in the comments of the video. I know YouTube just changed their system, so that might be more difficult. You could also feel free to, I guess, email me at robplaysthatgame@gmail.com. You can also send me a private message on YouTube. Or if you could wrap your head around this new YouTube commenting system, you could always just leave a comment. I try to get to as many as possible, even if not on screen. I try to answer them in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a fantastic week, whatever you're doing. Make the most of it, because it really does make it better and more enjoyable. And I hope to see you all here next week for the next episode of the Minecraft Disney World Q&A. Bye, everybody.